Hey everyone, tonight we're trading quiet dinners for couches, chaos, and the lingering scent of fermented fish sauce. Forget candlelit meals and polite conversation. A Roman banquet was a full-contact social sport, equal parts dinner party, political trap, and endurance test for your dignity. Imagine reclining awkwardly on your side trying to eat oysters while a drunken poet recites verses about your bald spot. Slaves rush by with platters of peacock tongues. Someone's vomiting loudly behind a curtain, and your host just announced a surprise philosophical debate during dessert. You wouldn't last an hour, let alone the whole night. Between the stomach-turning delicacies, forced laughter, and sudden accusations over wine, you'd be crawling toward the exit before the roasted dormice hit the table. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, let your mind wander, and allow the gentle rhythm of my voice to lull you towards sleep. Maybe settle in, pull your blanket a little closer, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Now then, let's set the table. Imagine being invited to a Roman dinner party, not as a guest of honour. No, you're not important enough for that. You're just important enough to be invited. This means you're either being courted for political support, subtly threatened, or both. You arrive bathed, perfumed, and slightly anxious. The host's house is a marble monstrosity with columns that scream compensating for something. You hand your toga to a slave and are immediately handed a cup of suspiciously sweet wine. Welcome to the arena. The atrium is crowded with statues of ancestors glaring at you. A bust of some long-dead senator seems to be judging your sandals. Recline or be judged. The dining room, the triclinium, is not designed for comfort. It's designed for power games. 3 couches, arranged in a U-shape. The host reclines at the most honourable position. You get the spot closest to the vomitorium, literally and figuratively. Reclining to eat feels glamorous until your back starts cramping and you realise the guy next to you won't stop whispering about tax reform. Also, you're sharing a plate with 3 people, and one of them eats with the enthusiasm of a starving lion. Course 1. Lettuce and insults. The meal begins with the gustatio, appetizers, lettuce with vinegar, olives that taste like someone shouted salt at them. Garum, that infamous fermented fish sauce, is drizzled on everything like it's a gift from the gods. It smells like Neptune's armpit. As the food is served, the real banquet begins, passive aggression. The host compliments your bold choice of sandals. A senator chuckles at your rustic Latin accent. Someone makes a toast to those who have risen so high despite their origins. Everyone laughs. You die inside a little. The performance begins. Suddenly a poet appears, possibly from under the table. He recites a 6-minute epic comparing the host to Hercules. No one claps. That's the point. Then come the jugglers. One drops a torch and almost sets a carpet on fire. Laughter ensues, mostly at you since the torch landed near your couch. A mime performs the Battle of Actium. You pretend to understand. The real game, who's watching whom? By the time the main course arrives, some unfortunate peacock stuffed with smaller birds stuffed with figs, you've realised something. This isn't dinner, it's surveillance. You're being watched for how much you eat, how much you drink, how much you laugh, and when. Do you toast too early? Too often? Not at all? The wrong answer means political suicide. The host whispers something about your vote on a land bill. You smile, he smiles. A slave appears and adjusts your pillow. You are now complicit, and that's only the first course. The night is just beginning. You've survived the lettuce and judgment. Barely. Now comes the wine, and with it the unravelling of what little social dignity you had left. First rule of Roman banquets. The wine is never just wine. It's a test. Of manners, of loyalty, of liver function. You're handed a goblet filled with something the colour of amethyst and the consistency of betrayal. It's been watered down, spiced up, possibly blessed by a priest, and definitely laced with ambition. Your host raises a toast to friends old and new, who may yet be useful. You drink, you smile, your tongue goes numb. The whisper spiral begins. After the fourth cup, the room starts tilting gently to the left. A senator leans in and murmurs, "You know, Gaius only got his promotion because he found Claudius's wife in the bath." Someone else adds, "And because he bribed the accountant with a goat, a singing goat." This is the Roman version of LinkedIn networking. Half-truths, veiled threats, and suspicious grapes. A woman with perfectly sculpted curls and a voice like olive oil murmurs something about a recent assassination. You pretend to laugh, unsure if it's a joke or a warning. Enter. The philosopher and the poisoner. There's always one. A philosopher with wine-stained robes who starts monologuing about stoicism just as the dancers come in. You try to nod thoughtfully while watching someone juggle knives. Meanwhile, a slave pours more wine. You notice his eyes linger on your cup. Another guest suddenly coughs, then chokes, then lies face down in a decorative salad. The host waves it off. He was allergic to sincerity. The room doesn't pause. It pivots. Laughter resumes. Dancers spin. Someone starts playing a flute made of bone. You're not entirely sure it's not human bone. You begin to suspect. Everything. Why did your cousin mention your will earlier? Why is the hostess laughing so hard? Why does your chair feel slightly warm, like someone recently vacated it in a hurry? You pick at your peacock and pear terrine and wonder if this is the last meal you'll ever pretend to enjoy. The host toasts again, this time, to clarity, to courage, and to catching liars before dessert. You swallow hard. There's a new course, something that looks like eel wearing a fig mask. You poke at it. It twitches. Someone suggests a game. Let's each say something we've never told anyone. The room goes quiet. Your brain screams. You make something up about losing a sandal in the forum. Everyone laughs. Too hard. Way too hard. The dancers arrive like a perfectly timed distraction. Except in Rome, nothing is just entertainment. Especially not when you're already slightly poisoned and wondering whether your seat has been cursed. They move like oil on marble. Their movements elegant, deliberate, and entirely calculated to shift attention or conceal something behind the curtain. Maybe both. Meet the performers. Or interrogators. First, the jugglers. One of them is a retired legionary. You can tell because he's missing 2 fingers and still somehow manages to juggle 5 bronze knives with the kind of focus normally reserved for assassins. Then there's a flautist with cheeks puffed like an angry cherub, who's playing what might be a love song or a coded message to an informant 3 couches over. A fire eater arrives. He's already sweating. Not from the fire, from the eyes watching him. No one claps. They just observe, carefully. You laugh too loudly at a pantomime involving a goat and a senator's toga. A woman next to you leans in and says, "He's mocking the prefect, you know." You swallow. Of course he is. When the entertainment is about you. And then it happens. A troupe of masked performers arrives, reenacting a satirical version of a well-known political scandal, except you're in it, or at least your likeness is. A masked figure in a suspiciously familiar tunic pretends to bribe another, stumbles and accidentally drops a coin purse into a wine jug. Everyone howls with laughter. You feel like your liver has turned to dust. The host shouts, "Pure fiction, of course." Inspired by real people, but purely fictional, he's grinning. Everyone's watching you for your reaction. You smile. Of course you do. You have to. Your life may depend on the quality of that smile. Dinner theatre with deadly stakes. This isn't entertainment. This is performance as political theatre. And you are either the audience or the subject. Possibly both. Someone next to you mutters, "Did you notice who isn't here tonight?" and raises an eyebrow. You hadn't. Now you can't stop thinking about it. Another round of performers. A satirical poet who starts a harmless recitation about a man who talked too much and now works in the mines. Everyone chuckles knowingly. You pray to Jupiter you aren't next. You try to blend in. You applaud at the right times. You laugh with restraint. You nod with measured grace, all the while calculating who's seated closest to the exits, who hasn't touched their wine, who hasn't blinked in 10 minutes. A young boy performs a simple tune on the lyre. Sweet, melodic, innocent. Everyone listens with rapt attention. You feel a pang of actual peace. Then he finishes, bows, and a senator across the room murmurs, "Pity." He reminded me of my nephew, before the exile. No one speaks for a moment. You realise the show never ends. The dancers return, more elaborate, more chaotic. One slips, another catches her. A cup shatters, a scream, maybe laughter. You don't even flinch now. You're fully assimilated. The host raises a hand. "One more surprise before dessert," he announces. The curtains part, and in walk actors dressed as the guests. They start mimicking your conversations, your gestures, your secrets. You laugh. Everyone laughs. One man doesn't. He's escorted out. You pretend not to notice. South. You're still alive. A little tipsy, mildly traumatized, and clinging to your social mask like it's your only shield. Because it is. And now, dessert. Which in Rome, naturally, isn't dessert. It's performance art. A coded language. A final exam in treachery. Layered in honey and served with a side of passive aggression. You made it through the games, the whispering, and the hilarious impersonations of your political downfall. So here's a sweet little something to coat the blade that's coming next. The grand finale of gastronomic threats. The slaves bring in trays like sacrificial offerings. Towering pyramids of dates stuffed with pine nuts and rumours. Figs poached in wine so old it remembers the Republic. Cakes moulded into the faces of disgraced officials, some sliced already. One particularly lifelike pastry features a senator with his mouth open. The filling oozes out when cut. It gets a standing ovation. Someone hands you a candied lark. You're unsure whether to eat it or offer it your allegiance. It stares back. A guest next to you lifts a spoon of violet mousse and casually remarks, "You know, I always wondered if you knew who really wrote that letter." You nod vaguely. Of course. You have no idea what letter. You just don't want your mousse poisoned. Sweetness with strings attached. This is not indulgence. This is obligation dusted with cinnamon. As you bite into a tart shaped like a miniature amphora, your host raises another toast. He's the Roman Oprah of poisoned metaphors at this point. To debts remembered and friends who know when not to speak. Laughter. All around you, people are laughing. The kind of laughter you hear right before a trial or an assassination. Or both. The woman beside you offers you a honey-soaked almond and whispers, "I know you didn't mean for the scroll to be found." She taps your goblet. Drink. You do, because this is Rome, where dessert is a loyalty test with a sugar glaze. A confection of political ghosts. As the wine gets thicker, so do the silences. Everyone begins reminiscing, loudly, about people who are definitely no longer welcome at dinner. "Poor Alias," someone sighs, tearing apart a rose-shaped pastry with alarming violence. "His ideas were just too fresh." The table murmurs its approval, a consensus of complicity. Another guest leans in, licking syrup off his fingers. "I heard he's in exile. Voluntary, of course. Right after his estate changed hands." Across the table, a patrician in a gold-trimmed toga folds a napkin with surgical precision and says, "I still send his mother dried apricots, seems decent." Everyone nods. Dessert is for diplomacy, not digestion. Your liver is writing its will. You're not even hungry anymore. You stopped being hungry 3 betrayals ago, but you eat to be polite, to be safe, to stay visible. Invisibility is fatal in this room. You chew slowly. You pretend to savour. You scan the room between bites, calculating who's still laughing, who's too quiet, who's pushing the cake away like it might contain state secrets. And then, a silence. The kind that drops like a guillotine. A servant announces the final course. Candied lotus petals soaked in wine from a consul's private vineyard. Only served to those who've earned it. You receive one. So does the guest next to you. The woman across from you does not. She laughs it off, says something witty. No one responds. You are now officially afraid of a flower. The curtain call comes in custard. As the plates clear, your host rises. "Friends, what a lovely evening, so many memories, so much progress, so few survivors," he chuckles. It's a joke, probably. He walks behind the couches like a general inspecting the troops, stops behind one guest, places a hand on his shoulder, says, "Walk with me, friend." They leave. Everyone resumes chewing. You're still here. That means something. You lick the last bit of honey from your fingers, not because you want to, you don't, but because people are watching. You thank your host. You compliment the pomegranate mousse. You pretend the decorative dagger stuck in the centerpiece isn't meant to be symbolic. And just as you begin to rise, the host whispers in your ear, smiling, "Same time next week. It'll be more casual, just a small gathering, maybe a trial." You nod. Because what else is there to do? The first half of the night was a delicate dance. Biting salads, thinly veiled insults, and theatrical performances that doubled as political dossiers. But now, as the moon climbs higher, the masks slip further. The true game begins when the wine flows thicker and the shadows grow longer. Welcome to the Roman dinner party's second act, where every gesture might be a threat, every smile a weapon, and every bite a negotiation. A toast to betrayal. The host lifts his goblet once more, voice heavy with a dangerous charm. To those who stay loyal when the wine turns bitter, and to those who know when to spit it out, he says, eyes scanning the room like a hawk circling its prey. The room responds with measured clinks of glasses, but your stomach knots. Loyalty in Rome is a currency more fragile than the finest glassware. One sip too many, one word too few, and you're bankrupt. Your neighbour, a senator whose toga gleams more than his morals, leans in and whispers, "Have you reconsidered your vote on the land redistribution? They say Caesar wants to give back to the people, or maybe take away from you." You smile tightly. Your mind races through alliances and enemies. Which side pays better? Which one lasts longer? The questions taste as bitter as the watered-down Falernian in your cup. The conversation turns to recent events, a magistrate scandal, a general's suspicious death, whispers of bribery and blackmail. Each tale is told in hushed tones, weighted with meaning. You listen carefully. Every piece of gossip is a thread in the complex tapestry of Roman politics, and you can feel the tension tightening like a noose. The unseen war dinner parties like this aren't merely social events. They're battlefields draped in velvet where daggers are concealed beneath silverware and alliances forged under the glint of candlelight. You observe the guests, the silent warriors, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the handshake that lingers just a second too long. The host's hand brushes yours ever so lightly, a fleeting contact, yet heavy with unspoken meaning. Is it a promise or a threat? You can't tell, and that's precisely the point. Nearby, a sharp-eyed freedman watches everyone intently, his fingers lightly tapping a scroll. He's the one who knows where the debts lie, who owes what to whom, and who's ready to call them in at the worst moment. The kind of man whose favour can save your career, or ruin your life. You recall a story whispered among the slaves. A senator was undone not by an enemy's sword, but by the careless slip of a name at such a feast. The wrong words in the wrong ear, and suddenly you're the target of a prosecution or exile. The war here is silent but deadly. Words are arrows, glances are ambushes, and laughter masks the sound of the first blow. Philosophy and poison. Amidst the whispers, a philosopher in stained robes raises his cup and declaims, "The Stoics teach us to endure, to accept the vicissitudes of fortune with calm." He swirls his wine, eyes glazed but calculating. You wonder, is he philosophizing or threatening? Sometimes the difference is just a matter of tone. His voice carries through the room, but his gaze fixes on one of the guests, the very one rumoured to be plotting the latest political upheaval. The philosopher's words feel less like comfort and more like a veiled warning. Endure, yes, but do not forget who controls fortune. Meanwhile, the slave who refills your goblet watches you with eyes that know too much. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. A drop too much wine, a grain of salt misplaced, and this party won't end in laughter. You think about the poisonings that have punctuated Roman history, not the dramatic public executions, but the quiet deaths in the night, slips of poison in wine, in food, or even in a kiss from a trusted ally. Every sip you take is a gamble with your mortality. The toga on fire. Suddenly, chaos. A servant trips, spilling oil lamps. Flames lick the edge of the host's prize purple toga, the symbol of his rank and power. Guests gasp, some freeze, others reach to douse the fire. The host laughs it off with a voice that's equal parts charm and menace. A small blaze for a hot night, friends. But you know better. Fire is a message, destruction disguised as accident. The host's laughter is a signal. Power is fragile, and he holds the match. You glance at the other guests. Some exchange knowing looks, their smiles tighter. The air thickens with unease. Who stands to gain if the host falls? Who might have arranged this accident? Such spectacles serve as reminders. In Rome, power is never secure. It flickers and burns, just like the flames now creeping dangerously close to the velvet curtains. Actors, masks, and the political theatre. The entertainment returns. Masked actors taking the stage to reenact recent scandals with exaggerated gestures as biting wit. Your likeness is portrayed as the scheming politician, grinning while plotting others' downfalls. The crowd's laughter is nervous. You force a smile that's more a grimace, Your liver protests, but the show must go on. Each line, each gesture is a veiled accusation. The actors don't just entertain, they indict. You catch the subtle nods exchanged between some guests, the kind that say, "Remember this story? It's not just a joke." The actors' masks hide their expressions, but their eyes gleam with dangerous intent. It's as if the entire city's secrets are performed here, nightly, with no one truly safe from scrutiny. Networking or not-so-secret assassination planning. As the night deepens, the talk shifts to recent exiles, mysterious deaths, and surprise appointments. You overhear mentions of a certain senator who disappeared after too many debts, and a fortunate exile whose estate suddenly changed hands. The conversations are layered with double meanings, like the layers of honey on the cakes. You realize everyone here is gambling with lives, and the stakes are mortal. A whisper nearby reveals that an influential patrician's demise wasn't natural, but orchestrated, a truth too dangerous for open admission yet too vital to ignore. You feel the eyes of a masked noble on you. The unspoken question hangs in the air. Are you part of the game or the target? The young lyrist's sad song. A boy takes the lyre, his notes pure and haunting amid the tension. His song, simple and sweet, momentarily softens the room. But when he finishes, a senator murmurs, "He reminds me of my nephew," before the exile. The room falls into a brief silence thick with unspoken sorrow and warning. The music fades, replaced by the murmurs of the restless crowd. You sense that beneath the surface of this lavish world lies a profound sadness. Lives ruined, families broken, hopes dashed. Final course, candied lotus and coded messages. The last course arrives, candied lotus petals soaked in rare wine, reserved for those who've earned it. You receive one. The woman beside you does not. She laughs, brushes it off, but you see the flicker of fear. You bite the lotus petal. Sweet, deceptive, just like this party. The host raises a final toast. To debts remembered and friends who know when to remain silent. The words hang in the air like a dense fog. You think about the debts, not just financial, but of loyalty, silence, and survival. In Rome, every favour must be repaid, often with interest that drains the soul. Exit strategies. Guests start to leave, some with haste, others with practised calm. The host pulls you aside. "Remember, the empire survives on secrets. Tonight, you are one." You nod, the weight of those words heavier than any meal. You step into the cool night, the laughter and threats lingering like smoke. Your mind races. What alliances did you forge? Which enemies did you make? Who will remember your face tomorrow, or wish they hadn't? Aftermath. The price of survival. Back in your chambers, the night replays in your mind. Every glance, every toast, every bite a thread in the web you must navigate tomorrow. Rome doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. You prepare your toga again for tomorrow's battle in the endless theatre of power. You understand at last. Roman dinner parties were not mere social occasions, but arenas of intrigue, survival, and spectacle. If you ever find yourself at such a table, remember, every smile may hide a knife, every toast a trap, and every dessert a challenge. And if you're lucky, you'll live to see the dawn and the next banquet. As the evening stretches on and the last embers of candlelight flicker against marble columns, the Roman dinner party reveals its true nature, a complex performance where every word carries weight and silence is often louder than speech. Secrets in the smoke. The flickering lamps throw long shadows across the room, making familiar faces seem alien and mysterious. Smoke curls from the incense burners, drifting lazily through the air, mixing with the scent of spiced wine and roasted meats. It's a sensory haze that blurs boundaries, not just between reality and performance, but between friend and foe. You lean back in your chair, the polished wood cool against your fingers. Across the room, two senators whisper behind delicate fans, their conversation muffled but urgent. You strain to catch a phrase, a name, a location, anything that could tip the balance in your favour. Nearby, a dignified matron, draped in fine silks, smiles sweetly while her eyes dart like a hawk hunting prey. You can almost hear the unspoken bargains being struck with a raised eyebrow or a subtle tilt of the head. The whispered game. A slave glides silently through the crowd, delivering folded notes sealed with wax. These are not mere invitations or pleasantries. They carry coded messages, orders or threats, whispers that ripple through the night like quiet thunder. You receive one, an elegantly written scroll heavy with consequence. The handwriting is sharp, the language cryptic. Your heart quickens. Is it an offer or a warning? You tuck the note into your toga, careful to conceal it. In Rome, even paper can be as deadly as a dagger. The poet's riddle. A slender man steps forward, a scroll in hand, and begins to recite poetry. His voice is soft but precise, weaving words like a web. Beneath the marble and gilded walls lies a city of shadows and whispered calls. Friend and foe in tangled embrace, each hides a secret behind their face. The crowd listens, entranced but wary. This is no idle entertainment. The poet's verses are veiled commentary on the night's hidden tensions, a mirror reflecting the precariousness of power. You feel a chill. Poetry in Rome is often the language of dissent, carefully crafted to avoid direct accusation while still striking home. A clash of wills. The host, sensing the growing unease, raises his voice to cut through the tension. He invites a general recently returned from the northern frontier to share tales of battle and glory. The general stands, his presence commanding. He speaks of brave legions, savage tribes, and the glory of Rome's expansion. But beneath the surface, his words carry another meaning, a veiled challenge to political rivals who question his authority or ambitions. You catch the flicker of a smile on the host's face, a knowing grin that says, "This is not just a story, this is a declaration." The silent observer. A mysterious figure in a hooded cloak watches from the shadows. No one quite knows who he is. Some say he's a spy. Others a disgraced senator seeking revenge. You catch his eyes briefly, sharp, calculating, unreadable. In the world of Roman politics, such observers are everywhere. They gather secrets like treasure, ready to trade them for power or survival. You wonder, is he here to watch, to report, or to act? The price of ambition. The conversations turn to power plays, promotions, marriages, betrayals. A wealthy patrician boasts of his daughter's upcoming union with a rising star, cementing an alliance that will shift influence across the city. But the daughter's face is pale, her smile strained. You sense the price she pays, a pawn in the grand game of dynasties. You think of your own ambitions, the sacrifices, the risks. Is the price worth the power? The feast's darkest hour. As midnight approaches, the party reaches its most dangerous phase. The wine is potent, the laughter louder but more brittle, and the guards at the doors more watchful. You notice a subtle shift. The pleasantries thin, replaced by urgent, sometimes desperate conversations. You overhear talk of an assassination plot, of forged documents, of a trial that could end careers or lives. The room feels smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves are closing in. A dance of shadows. The music changes, a slow hypnotic rhythm that pulls guests to their feet. Couples dance, but there is little joy. Movements are stiff, rehearsed, like actors performing a script written by fear and ambition. You watch carefully, noting who touches whom, who avoids eye contact, who lingers too long. Each step, each gesture is laden with meaning. The dance is a metaphor for power, an intricate game where one misstep means ruin. The final toast. The host stands once more, raising his goblet in a solemn toast. To Rome, he intones, and to the fragile peace that binds us all. Glasses rise, the room still but for the clink of silverware. You sip your wine slowly, savouring the bittersweet taste. You realise that tonight, like every night in Rome, peace is temporary, a fragile veneer over the chaos beneath. The quiet. After the storm guests begin to depart, shadows slipping back into the night. You gather your things, your mind heavy with thoughts and plans. The city waits beyond the walls, loud, restless, unforgiving. But for now, there is silence. Epilogue. The night's lullaby. The story of tonight's dinner party has come to an end. A night woven with whispers, secrets, and the ever-present dance of power. If you're still awake, still listening, I hope this calm murmur of history wraps around you like a gentle cloak. And now, let the soft, steady sound of rain outside soothe your thoughts. May the quiet patter of raindrops be your lullaby, guiding you into a peaceful, restful sleep. Good night.